Now onto our next session, the panel. Before we join the panel of experts on digital ID, we have a very special keynote speech on the evolution of digital identity. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Anushita Nukun onto the stage, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure that this is going to be a keynote speaker because I think they'll just want me to talk and then without discussing with other people. But anyway, before I start telling you about digital ID infrastructure, especially in Thailand, I think we should first get the same understanding what we actually mean by digital infrastructure first. Otherwise, we're talking about different things. And so to make us understand about the word digital infrastructure, I'd like to draw a parallel with the other kind of digital infrastructure that we have already implemented in Thailand and many people are quite familiar with, that is payment system. In payment system that was mentioned many times on the stage, another the name of prompt pay is a digital infrastructure for payment. And digital infrastructure for digital ID is the same concept of being an infrastructure. Let's say without the infrastructure, what would happen? Let's say if I have to transact with my friends, and my friends are using different kinds of apps. If I have 3 friends using 3 different apps, that means that I have to download 3 apps in order to transact with 3 of my friends, right? But that would not be convenient, but it's happened in many countries with our digital infrastructure on payment, right? And after that, all these apps gonna try to help their user by connecting their system together to facilitate this kind of connection without requiring all the user to download every app. But if you have many participants, many apps in the ecosystem, that means that you're gonna have to connect all the system together. It's gonna be a big web. It's gonna be an n times n square projects, IT projects to connect every app together. Just like what I show on the screen. And I actually intentionally left out one of the connection, which is not easy to notice. But in reality, if the ecosystem is developed this way, that means that you're going to tell your user that if you are using this app, you cannot connect to that app, but this app, except that app, include that app, but not that one. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a mess, just telling your user what can work together. And imagine if we don't have prompt pay, we don't have that kind of infrastructure in Thailand. I have to ask my friend which bank you are using. I'm looking whether my bank is connected to your bank or not, or is otherwise. Then do you have other banks app as well, so I can connect to you? It's gonna be a mess. Okay, so if we let our country develop without digital infrastructure in this way, it's gonna take years. I don't know how many years to connect everything together. And I'm sure that Thailand would not be transformed into a cashless society as we have been today if we go that route. So the digital infrastructure, I'll always give an analogy to having a superhighway that cut across the country, that connects all the small cities together. The cities being the participants, the apps within the ecosystems. And by having this superhighway that cuts through the whole country, each participant, each city in the country only built one on-off ramp onto the infrastructure. That's all they need to do, just one project to connect, just one link to the main road to the superhighway, and then all the city will be connected together. I want to emphasize this because this should be the idea of anyone or any country, anywhere, and in the main principle that we have to use when we talk about digital infrastructure. It is not an app. It is a system, a standard that glue, that connect every participant, every system in the ecosystem so that it enable transaction that go across, enable all the participants to work together to deliver the good and service to the consumer. And at the same time, I want to emphasize here also that the infrastructure itself usually don't have customer-facing channel. It's up to the participant itself to provide the customer-facing application. Let's think it this way. If we don't have prompt pay, and the Thai government decided, a few years ago that, hey, we don't have this infrastructure. We're gonna build a government app, a single app, where everybody in Thailand have to download this in order to conduct all their financial activities. A single app, a super app, government wallet that everybody has to use. What happened? Then it will destroy all the future innovation in Thailand, because you have to wait for that government body to improve that app, to come up with a new version, to innovate. But if instead of doing that, we build the infrastructure without any customer-facing front and let the participant, in this case the banks and non-banks, develop their own apps and connect to the infrastructure so that they can compete, they can innovate to bring the best experience, use the best technology, and compete in terms of marketing and cost and efficiency to deliver the best service at the cheapest cost to Thai consumer. So that's I want to conclude here that what we mean always by building a digital infrastructure is a structure that connects participants in the ecosystem so that it enables transaction with the most efficiency and allow innovation and competition. Okay, and this should be the key to any design or development of digital infrastructure. And it should be this same concept that a digital ID infrastructure should be designed and built. Okay. And in Thailand, during the last years of the previous government, the private sector and public sector came together, set up a company, set up as a committee, and later on a company to build the infrastructure, digital ID infrastructure for Thailand under the name of NDID. And with the exact principle of design, as I explained earlier, to be a infrastructure rather than an app. And NDID allows participants in many roles, which we usually call relying party, identity provider, and authoritative source, to enable them to conduct a transaction, even a complex transaction that involve many parties, to deliver the service to consumer. And as you can see from this simple chart, that is not limited to just some kind of transactions. Not only financial, not only health, it can be any kind of transaction that connects onto this superhighway and enable the new kind of digital service to Thai consumer. And right now, up to this moment, NDID has been, I don't know how many years, a few years already, 4 years already. And many companies, many providers, banks, non-banks, as well as public sectors have already been connected onto this new infrastructure. And a lot of the services, which I show you later, has already been enabled, and many people are starting to use it. But before I go on, I would like to emphasize another key element of building a digital infrastructure. I mentioned about enabling part and efficiency part. To have the efficiency, there are two key concepts. First is to make into an open infrastructure where a lot of people come and compete. It's the same thing that we discussed earlier in the earlier session, that a payment system should allow banks and non-banks into the same infrastructure so that they compete. Because the competition, the market force itself, is the only way that we can guarantee that there's no inefficiency left behind, because they're going to compete and lower cost to the consumer. And that's what you see in PromptPay, which bank compete until each transaction is free. And that's drive the growth of not only the usage, and because they're trying to improve the efficiencies in themselves, so the bank becomes stronger and better, and they innovate, and it brings out even more new kind of service and expand the market even further. That's the market force in the working. But at the same time, you not only allow the competition, but you have to ensure also that there is only one infrastructure, not two, not three, not many infrastructure, because that's gonna destroy the principle of efficiency. Because if you think it in a macro level, counting the number of transactions in the country to end, I mean, you can only have this much number of transactions in the whole country. And if you have a cost of running an infrastructure as C, total cost, then the transaction cost is basically C divided by N, right? But if some crazy people think that, okay, we should build another infrastructure on top of it, and then every party, every people in the ecosystem had to connect to every infrastructure, then it's not going to be C, it's be 2C, 3C, multiple times of C. So the more you build this unnecessarily overlapping, duplicate infrastructure, you're going to reduce the efficiency and increase the cost. So this is another principle that is very important. I have to say it here because right now, I mean, even as we speak, there's still a lot of attempts in Thailand to build duplicate infrastructure. Okay, because the reason that I have to come up on this stage and say all this because I want to really clear out all this misunderstanding that we should have competition at the participant level, not the infrastructure level. Okay, and I want you to go back home and remember that infrastructure is not an app. Because every time, I mean, from time to time, I'll see a government agency, a government department come up with a new, quote-unquote, digital ID infrastructure project again. Some of them would be a duplication of digital infrastructure, but most of them would end up being just a project of an app, building an app. And you should understand by now that an app is not an infrastructure. Otherwise, I'm going to have every Thai citizen have to download so many apps of every ministry to do everything, right? And I used to joke that it's just like in the movie Lord of the Ring, but now we have Lord of the apps. And trying to find an apps of power, an app to rule them all. A super app to rule all the apps. With a huge budget to rule all the apps. And that's what happened in many government agencies. And but luckily, NDID has already been running. It has already been proven that it can handle many kinds of use cases in many sectors. Right now, and along the process, I have to tell that we have developed a lot of standards and we push the standards so that the KYC process uplift the information that we know about the user into a more I don't want to go into technical detail, but this is what they call IAL 2.3. Right now, 35 million users in Thailand. This is more than half of the people in Thailand are already enabled to use digital ID. And currently, each month, there are millions of transactions of people doing all kinds of transactions ranging from opening account or accessing their credit bureau or even access to their account at the revenue department. There are millions of transactions already. A lot of Thai people have already been using it without knowing that that is what we call digital ID. Okay, it's already there. Okay, and many, as you can see, there are many kinds of transactions, many kinds of new services that are being enabled, and the roadmap still line up with a lot of new kind of services that's going to bring onto the ecosystem. It can only happen if we have a good infrastructure without any duplications. And you can imagine if we don't have this kind of infrastructure, then anyone who wants to use a digital ID have to go around the country talking to every participant in the ecosystem and connect that system to. It's not going to work. Okay. There's another angle which I think is a key development step, which is also a challenge to the country going forward, is the extension of the usage of digital ID from individual citizen user ID into the one that we can apply it for business, for foreigner, for juristic persons. Okay? That's the next step. That's the next challenge. Maybe later on, people in the panel gonna discuss about this. Okay. I would like to conclude this presentation with just the last message. We have been quite successful in building digital infrastructure for payment. And one of the key reasons is because we have the Bank of Thailand. Okay. I have to say that because they invite me to talk on this stage too. So, but that's a joke. But this is the truth that we have the Bank of Thailand, who is the authoritative body that can command the respect and cooperation of the participant in the ecosystem of payment system, mainly the banks. Because building a digital infrastructure is a huge endeavor. And at the same time, you have to overcome a lot of obstacles, mostly from different needs and sometimes conflicting needs of people in the ecosystem. The bank, individually, they don't want to cooperate with each other because they are competing. But they have to cooperate to build a system without the middleman, like the Bank of Thailand, who has the authority to demand something, to conclude something, to say, hey, this is what it is, this is not what we want. Without that central body, it's not going to happen. But for digital ID infrastructure, it's even a bigger challenge. Because now it cuts across every industry. Private sector, public sector, likewise. All the ministries. Then the question is, who is going to be this middle authoritative body to push through, to make sure that everybody follow, obey, and go together to build a single ecosystem for digital ID? That's the biggest challenge. Okay, I don't have the question yet, the answer yet, because I'm also not the Prime Minister. And even if I'm not Prime Minister, I'm not sure whether the Prime Minister can command all the fragmented, all the factions within the government that looks over different ministries. So that's a challenge. Okay, which I don't have the answer right now. I'm going to leave it to the next panelists to discuss some of this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again, Dr. Anushita Nukun, for an insightful overview of digital identity and its evolution. On to our last session at the main conference today. Not only that we have had an insightful keynote speeches on the digital identity, but we also have a panel of experts on digital identity to deep dive into the developments and adoption of digital identity for both individual levels and business level that serves as fundamental for the digital economy. For the panel on business in the digital world, the evolution of digital identity, please give a warm welcome to the Director of Enterprise Risk Management Department at the Bank of Thailand, Ms. Wichit Lekha Marom ครับ
ส Thank you, Dempsey. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the very last but not least session of today's main conference. I'm truly honored to be moderating this session, and it's my pleasure to have our distinguished four gentlemen here on the stage. So, for a whole day, we've heard about the digital finance products and services along with the electronic payment systems, but all of these will not be happening at all if you don't have the first and foremost important thing, which is your own identity in the digital world. Okay, so including the previous session, the keynote addressed how the infrastructure should look like, right? So, and the benefits of having and the drawbacks of not having the collaborative platform for the digital identity as an infrastructure. So today, in the session, we'll talk about the evolution of the digital identity, and then we get the viewpoints from the key stakeholders and insights of use cases, not only the individual identity, digital identity, but also the extension of using the digital identity for businesses. That's going to be a really insightful information and discussion because there are a lot of projects going on about the corporate digital identity, which we'll share on the stage here today. So last but not least here, we'll hear about the hands-on experiences from the real implementation and what makes those projects successful. All right, so we have the four distinguished gentlemen here with me today. From the service provider supply side, so we have the founder and CEO from SureCert, which is the digital identity and background checking platform from the UK. Please join me to welcome Mr. Ian Savage. So not only the service provider we also have the key stakeholders who are involved in the outstanding digital identity implementation, starting from the public sector. And we have one of the biggest public hospitals in Thailand adopting the e-documents with digital signature and remote signing. We have a great honor from the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, Sirirat Hospital, Mahidol University. Please join me to welcome Professor Apichat Asawamongkol. And one of the key players in Thailand's digital ID system in the role of trusted source, we have the CEO from the one and only credit bureau in Thailand, NCB. Please welcome Mr. Surapon Odpatsathien. And last but not least, here we have a regulator. Well, we are in the same boat because the Bank of Thailand is also playing a regulator role. And we have the executive director from the Electronic Transactions Development Agency, or EDTA, who is the policymaker and also the regulator of the digital identity services in Thailand. Please welcome Dr. Chaichana Mitpan. Okay, first of all, thank you so much once again for being here with us this year on the stage of the Bank of Thailand, and I'm truly honored to be moderating the session. Let's get started with Ian here to show us the big picture, do the environmental scan of the current development of the digital identity, especially in the global perspective, like in the UK. Back to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me today and being back in Thailand. It's been far too long. Firstly, just by way of introduction, we've just recently been commissioned by the British Embassy in Thailand to help support where we can the further adoption of digital identity. So thank you again to the British Embassy. I mean, briefly, who am I? Just before I go into the global, so I run a digital identity providing company in the United Kingdom, based in Northern Ireland, and we've been running Northern Ireland government's full citizens identity verification process for the last 12 months, largely developed because of the COVID vaccine passport requirement, needed a digital identity tool, but it's also now a reusable identity right across government. I think the big thing from a global perspective, there are an awful lot of developments in some places actually where you wouldn't necessarily expect them. I'll give you an example of Rwanda, for example, which is now really quite heavily advanced, and RegTech Africa is very much about developing a comprehensive view on what identity does across government, particularly on government citizen identity, assisted very much by the World Bank. And then you have different pockets of development. I mean, I think we're probably all pretty familiar with Singapore, which is obviously very, very highly advanced, and everybody's cultural needs and government needs and indeed financial sector needs are very different across those different areas. But there are pockets, for example, in Commonwealth countries, for example, New Zealand and Canada, the UK, and then with non-Commonwealth countries such as Israel and Denmark would be getting together to try and standardize a lot of these similar approaches. To give you an idea of what happened in the UK and what digital identity means in the UK, the system we have essentially has a number of different elements. I'm not sure if we have the slide, or maybe we'll go back to the slide.
Yeah, we have one of the slides here.
I'll just keep going as we get the slide. So, I was very interested to listen to NDID, and we're talking to NDID in more detail tomorrow, but essentially the UK government standard across digital identity has a number of key elements. So the first one would be, does the identity exist? So we don't have an NDID equivalent, but what we do have would be 3 different credit check providers, and that involves, thank you. We personally use Experian for that, where it goes through a broad range of publicly available and bank available data to confirm the name, address, and date of birth is what the individual says it is. And that also flags up some red flag identity checks as well. It could be anything from bank, telco data, electoral roll. So there are some public elements in that as well. But we go into red flag data, such as it would flag up a known fraudulent identity. It could be PEPs and sanctions, or global sanctions checks as well. And we do things like mortality data. So to give you an example, there are actually 3 types of dead people in the UK. Only one that would come from a trusted government source. We had around 80 dead people apply for digital identity checks in the last 12 months, which we found very interesting. So once we've done that identity check, we then do an identity document check. This is a largely commoditized process now. We essentially confirm that the passport or driving license, or in some cases citizen identity card, is valid and is not fraudulent, using a range of artificial intelligence approaches. We then do a selfie check, not from a government database selfie, but from a photograph provided by the citizen. And then once that's compared, we then do the full data comparison check, which confirms that individual, essentially a triangulation of data to make sure that individual is who they say they are, and that the identity information is available.
That's really interesting. I think it looks similar to what Dr. Anushit has mentioned about the NDID platform, which is the common infrastructure connecting the involved party together, and this to do the cross-checking of the data if the validity and authenticity, right? So let's get back to what Thailand is doing here. Listen from the policymaker and the regulator, and as we are leading forward to the digital economy. So what is your policy or the strategic direction that the EDTA is formulating to foster the digital identity in Thailand?
Thank you. We are a new regulator, and we are trying to study, what have been done and what we are trying to do. And digital ID is one of the space that many industries and government transactions will be based on. And we have been working on this since 5 years ago with many stakeholders.
Including the Bank of Thailand.
Oh yes, of course. The central bank is one of the major stakeholders who's helped shape what we have today. So there's been the need for digital IDs 5 years ago on the private sector based on the KYC requirements, in particular for the banks. But at the same time, the government started to computerize, trying to transform. So the government had a policy, a digital economy policy, which tried to force government agency to transform and use more of the technology to provide the services to the Thai citizens. So at least there are 2 needs that leads to the development of the digital ID, and so many initiatives has happened, including the setting up of NDID.
Right.
Yes. The government has been, thinking of being a slow mover. We are never fast enough for the business world. That's why NDID happened first, to serve the business entities, while the government is developing.
Well, slower is better than never.
We hope so. The government has been, on the principle of trying to be deliberate and try to think of all the perspective and try to make sure that we are going in the right direction. And recently, we have been trying to talk to many different stakeholders, including government agencies and private entities, in order to try to come up with a framework which will go for the next 2 years. And we came up with the 8 strategic thrusts to drive in the next 2 years, which has been agreed upon with many stakeholders, both government side and also private side. Let's see, the first one is digital identity for individuals, juristic persons, and foreigners has to be enabled to enhance electronic transactions. So that means we try to cover at least, these 3 groups: individuals, Thai individuals, juristic peoples, and foreigners, so that we try to incorporate everybody into the digital world. The second is citizens can choose appropriate digital identity to access online services. The meaning of appropriate identity that has to be decided by the service providers, because service providers has to make sure that they provide the service to authorized person or the person that they want to provide the service to. It's not only on the citizen side to select the identity that they have. So that has to be agreed upon. So these 2 strategies is considered to be the inclusion principle given by the World Bank to promote the digital ID. They have given 3.
Sorry, is one of the first 2 things that you start doing, right? Because there are 8 cores, so you start with the first 2?
Right.
Okay.
Then the next group is the design. We want to make sure that our strategy is embracing all the stakeholders and make sure that they have a good design principles. So the third one is the Ministry of Interior is the main authority which provides information and services to support identity verification of Thais and foreigners residing in Thailand, because they have the data of all the Thai citizens, and also the data of foreigners who live in Thailand longer than 6 months. So they will provide information and services to the entities require the authentication of the persons. The fourth one is the Department of Business Development is the main authority which provides information related to juristic person to support its use of digital identity in conducting transactions, because DBD is the registrar of the business entity in Thailand. So they have the trusted source for business entity in Thailand. The fifth strategy is juristic person conducts transactions using digital identity of the authorized individuals of the juristic person. So juristic person consists of individuals in the company. And by way of doing it now, a person can be authorized by the juristic person to conduct transactions on behalf of the juristic person. So we adopt that into the digital world as well, so that the power of attorney becomes important. And we will talk about that in a bit later.
Okay.
The sixth one is citizens can access public service using trusted digital identity without identity re-verification. So that's the attempt to reduce the number of digital cards in your wallet. So the best maybe a person may say that I want to have only one card or one ID. But business requirements or environment or context may require a person to have more than one ID. For example, driver's license or cards for receiving government benefits. They may require some attribute of the user to be on the ID cards themselves. So this group of 4 strategies grouped into the design principle that's recommended by the World Bank. The 7th is on the governance side. So EDTA will drive overall digital ID policies and develop common standards which sectoral regulators may apply to their sectors. So EDTA, by law, is the entity that provides the support to the Electronic Transactions Commission to regulate the digital ID services. So we will recommend policy and make sure that we have appropriate standards to make sure that digital identity is interoperable and provide what Dr. Nishida said, the superhighway for different parties to work on. And the eighth one is Digital Government Agency, or DGA, develops public sector digital identity standards to ensure cross-compatibility and interoperability between public and private sectors. That's to make sure that on the government side, there's also a good governance on the interoperability of digital ID and make sure that the use is trustworthy.
Yeah, that's really interesting how the regulators actually go with a framework. We do that as well. This is only the first phase, right? And there are already 8 cores. So how long are you expecting this to get something done?
Yeah, that's bringing us the laughter.
Okay, we'll get back to you later on the probably adoption or implementation. We hear from the service provider and also the regulator, then we'll see the real experiences on the implementation. We have Professor Doctor here to share with us the initiatives that they have, use the electronic documents with the electronic signature and remote signing. What was your first thoughts when you start using these digital solution, and what's your secret sauce actually to make it successful? Professor?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. May I have my slide, please? So, Celia Hospital is the largest public hospital in our nation and also in our ASEAN country. And you might have same experience as the government side. Everything that we would like to do, like a procurement process for the liquidation or order, we have a lot of documentation, a lot of papers, and many times come with the wrong, something like a wrong number is not right. We need to send it back, and this will be, sometimes maybe more than 2 or 3 times that the waste timing and where's the chance that we can, do it in the right way to have something like a medicine or equipment ready for patients. And this is a pain in the neck. And also it's costly every time. And the process is quite long. So I think that after we have the signature for 3 weeks, because the process begins before.
Just for one person?
Yeah, because I'm the first dean who used this signature. Because of the past dean, Professor Plus is going to be the first one who begin, but just beginning in the October the 1st. And I think that for my experience, it's very comfortable because of I can access in everywhere. I can approve from my home, from my car, because of this is the real good thing that you can access from anywhere. I think this is the first important. The second thing that we can reduce the timeline from average about 26 days to be 4 days. And then that this for the benefits is going to be to our patients because we can reduce the timeline. And I think that this whole process cannot happen if we don't have the support from every sector, not only our side, not only the vendor side, but especially for the government side. And it's really so lucky because we have the support from the vendors. We choose the DKNHH and the Zurich Pharma, also SCG, because they give the volume of the contract in our business per year. And the main issue that every time we're gonna asking about how can we retrieve the right data and how can we make sure. So I think that our gentleman just confirmed because of the safety and the security that the government side put in the infrastructure. So I think that we believe to this system, and I think that after my first impression, the first one, the way that I need to identify myself, that take a little bit longer time, like we have experience already. But after that, we need not to use that because of the KY. We use the signing certificate and also using LTP, personal identity. It's no problem in my 3 weeks. That the position. So I think that the key success because of we have all the support from the every kind of sectors and also all the stakeholders to make this process happen. And I still believe that this is going to be helpful for my procurement system and hope that we can share more after this next section. Okay.
Thank you so much, Professor. So it's so obvious that the digital solutions offer you the better efficiency and also decrease the cost, and definitely all the benefits go to the people, the patients that he mentioned about. So not only the public sector, in financial sector, as we are within the Central Bank of Thailand here, we've done a lot in the digital identity development. So for the one and only NCB Credit Bureau here, as one of the key stakeholders who help building up the platform, so-called NDID as well. So any views on you helping on this and the what kind of data they're flowing, what you're seeing, and what the benefits that the people can get from that?
Credit Bureau in Thailand, we have like the 125 member is to provide the service to call the credit information, provide for them to the loan process. I show you the slide is on my handwriting, right?
This is really unique.
Yeah, handwriting, because I'm an accountant. I study accountant and study Master of Law, but this is the digital, okay?
All right.
It's very easy for the customer when we enhance to the digital ID. The customer is go to like the digital touch point, mobile, web, or anywhere, right? The RP, we provide the digital touch point. The law is said that before the credit bureau, we disclose the information to the financial institute, it need to KYC the customer. This is the law is request. How we know that who you say you are? Either I'm a Surapo, but you are a Surapo, real Surapo or not? Who you say you are? The three key things that to ensure that Surapo is something you have, something you know, something you are, right? With the technology, for example, is a facial recognition, with the OCR, everything, build it in the solution. The NDID platform will helping the eKYC in the cyberspace is reality. We no need the paper, is go from this table to this table, right? After that, if we know that Surapo is Surapo, Mr. A is Mr. A, under the legal condition, strictly the legal condition. After that, the e-consent and the e-signature we create. From the e-consent create, the e-request will go to the NCB. The NCB will return. We not return the information through the NDID because we know about like PDPA is condition. We decide that we get the token to the member. The member is get our token to their system to inquiry the information. We have the link point to point with the member 125, and we return the information to the member within 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3 return after their request. You know that in Thailand last year 120 million transaction a year.
Requesting your credit information?
Yeah,
120 million transactions.
Yep. And from this picture, we design with based on like the PDPA, Electronic Transaction Act. The last Amendment Act is talking about like the digital ID, okay? Credit Bureau Business Act and Market Conduct from the Bank of Thailand. The serious issue is in place. Next slide, please. Next slide.
And where are you
Yeah.
from that picture? Sorry, can you get back again? Where are you in the picture?
NCB as an
Yeah.
AS in the
Alright.
NDID.
Yes.
NCB is an AS in NDID, right? The customer is identification to the RP, right? The RP verification the customer. The IP is authenticate the people. After that, the AS is disclose the information.
Right. So AS is the authoritative source.
Right.
Or the
The-
trusted source?
Yeah.
information?
The next slide will show you a little bit about like the example that we get the information. Every consent, when we delete the privacy and we're using the statistic, we will know about like the behavior of the customer who signed the consent when they apply the loan. Within the information you will see that the consent owner is the generation X, Y, or Z, or baby boomer, right? What time that they're using the digital touch point to request the loan? What product that they're using? And this is to measure that application of the bank A is better of the bank B or not. Who is the target customer? What is the behavior of the customer? It's very easy. This is a little bit example that we get the information from the consent. And you know that the consent is, 1 million of the consent is come to every time. And we're using the information on this is to build it and return to the member, is to enhance their service to serve the customer. This is all that Credit Bureau is done it today.
This is really impressive because the first and foremost thing that you need to do is to make sure that the person is the person he's saying he is.
Yes.
Right? In order to disclose the information. Otherwise, that's the,
We
against
cannot
the law.
we cannot to disclose to missed person, because if we send the information is missed person, I will come to jail 5 years.
So we
The
can.
law said, yeah.
So we're certain that whatever the NCB is doing is probably the safe and sound
Yep.
processes, solutions to make sure that he's not going to get in trouble.
Hope so.
All right, so let's go back to the agenda here that we're talking about, the evolution of the digital identity and what businesses can take the most benefits of it. So let's talk about the new opportunities, the extension from the individual digital identity to business to facilitate the ease of doing businesses for the corporates and companies. So I'd like to ask the ETDA about, probably he can illustrate how corporate digital ID work and also what the national agenda that you have with this corporate digital identity.
Great. We are now looking at the application on the business side. The identity of business is very important when a corporate would like to conduct the transactions, maybe entering into a contract, the corporate has to provide a lot of information for identifying which businesses, which registration number you have with the DBD and all different types of paperwork. And we try to enable the digital transformation for that. So recently we have published a recommendation for delegation of authority resulting in the electronic power of attorney, so that individuals with digital ID can transact on behalf of business where he has the delegation of authority from. And under this recommendation, we provide format for electronic message, which covers document details, authorization information, and signature, which cover both general signature or digital signature. So this can be very, very flexible to use. and allow many types of technologies to use under this recommendation. The authorization information would cover just like normal paper-based power of attorney, such as the delegator identity, delegatee identity, or it even support sub-delegation, or maybe in Thai การมอบอำนาจช่วงไป
Next step, right?
Right. And the validity period of the delegation and different conditions and where to verify this information. So that's the substance in the message. The second part is electronic signature and e-seal. E-seal in Thailand, we allow a company to use seal, or in Thai is ตราประทับ
Yeah, that's quite a big challenge.
Right. And actually, the law allow the seal to be used electronically, but we haven't seen much of it so far. Maybe.
How does it look like? The electronic seal.
Well, it can be anything. Actually, anything. But we recommend for the trustworthiness of the seal. It can be in the form of digital certificate.
Okay. Similar to what the individual ones are applying.
Right. So this recommendation accommodate different types of e-signature and electronic seal of the corporate. It's in order to use this recommendation, there may be several systems involved, but we may not need all of them. For example, certificate issuing systems, which we have a few today, such as TDID or Internet Thailand. These are two certification authority that is under the trust framework at the national level, because they are certified with a web trust operation scheme. So that's the first type of system. This system allows a digital signature to be verified with trust with a third-party service. The second system that we may use is identity management system. If NDID, which is a platform that connects different IDPs together, this may consider a identity management system, which can help identify who the person is. That are either delegator or delegatee. Information management system is a system that provides support for the whole process. For example, the system may be used for document validation to make sure that the document is not a counterfeit, or the document exists at a certain period in time. The fourth one is juristic person information system, which I think is under the authority of the DBD, Department of Business Development, which I think the central bank and also EDA and many organizations have been talking to the DBD so that this information system can be used for the purpose of corporate digital ID, and is still ongoing, the discussion how that can be used. The fifth one is e-timestamp duty system, which support the in Thai is argon stamp, which required to be put on certain types of document. Now it can be put on electronically. That is announced by the Department of Revenue. You can go and look at the website to see what kind of duty stamp can be conducted electronically. The sixth one is time reference system. We want to make sure that, in particular, the validity period, how can that be verified? What is a time reference? Now we have e-time stamping system. We have the time reference system run by different authority in Thailand that can be used.
I have curious that e-seal is have a power. It's just like the seal that today in the physical, right? In feng shui, some company is a feng shui.
What?
Feng shui. Feng Shui. E seal is power, spirit. In soul is just like the physical seal.
Yes,
I think it's number 7.
number 7.
Should be. But at least it's legally binding.
Yes,
Right.
thank you. I'll add that in my slide.
Yeah, this is really interesting because just trying to set up the recommendation and framework and basically to standardize it and to make sure that, even there are a lot of solutions, but they should be able to talk to each other
Right.
upon these standards and the formats.
Right.
Very cool.
It's a recommendation so that people can start moving forward. And if people see problems with using the recommendation, they can feedback and we can update them.
Okay, so probably good start for Thailand, and then we'll see what the adoptions going forward in the future upon this recommendation. So back to you, Ian. What's your view on this for the future looking of the adoption from the retail segment to wholesale of the digital identity that you're seeing?
I think it's probably two things in the UK in particular. One is the framework that has been developed legislatively for this adoption or stronger adoption of digital identity. And the UK government has put together a digital identity and attributes framework which essentially simplifies and standardises the approach. And then we as identity providers will get validated onto that particular framework. So that then opens up a lot of different opportunities, not just in retail, but to give you an example, 2 legislative areas. One is the right to work in the UK, and then the right to actually rent property in the UK is now part of that framework. So you can use a digital identity tool to do the right to work and right to rent approaches, but there are a whole range of different approaches that are applications for that once you've actually got that framework in place. And that's still very much in the early stages, and across the world it's similar. So I know that New Zealand are going through a similar attributes and trust framework to enable then broader adoption beyond government. I think it's just slightly interesting to say that the UK government had developed this really also as a market to formalise digital identity as a way of being an economic driver as well, from tech companies to grow. But then on the other side, they then created a one login for government approach, which is almost contrasting with that particular framework. So it's still just being, we're not doing everything best practice in the UK, and it's a little bit conflicting at the minute to see how that would work. But the framework is very much designed to really get everybody to start using this particular tool. But I mean, to give you an example, I'm selling a house in Northern Ireland where I live at the minute, and I had to drive an hour to a solicitor last week to give my identity information to them directly, so which was ironic given my company. So we're still very much behind, but I think the legal area would be a very big area as well.
Yeah, as Dr. Cheshana mentioned about the government bodies in Thailand, which is the Department of Business Development, who has a registrar for businesses. And there are also some opportunities and challenges from accessing, those kind of registration information. How about in the UK? Are you facing similar challenges or any opportunities that we'd like to share?
I think the big opportunity is definitely on the very politicised area of right to work and right to rent. So I think the frameworks that are being there to sort of to tighten up the way in which people could get into the country, or the way in which people work or rent in the country. So, I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, we because I work in an identity environment, I think everybody's so far ahead, because we are always talking about technology.
Yeah.
But there's an awful lot of opportunities. I mean, I work with a particular Danish bank, for example, that does all of the know your customer still manually. And I think there's an irony. They think that by doing it manually, the regulator would be happier. So I think there's a better steer potentially from the regulator to be in a driver of digital adoption, I think would be a key thing within the UK.
Yeah, it's great to hear about the adoption because actually we're talking about the scalability and we want to push up the adoption of the digital identity as well. So personally, I think use cases are very important. Doesn't matter what solutions you're using, what technology you're using, or what stakeholders are involved. But if that's the use case that can be driven by the market, that will work, definitely.
But I think part of the use case is really interesting in digital government because there's no point in getting access to government services if then the next stage isn't digitized. So, we call it a single point of truth for digital identity, that which Estonia did, that if you can do that first, then everything flows from that as you start to transform government services as well.
What was the use case? What actually are use cases the UK government has started with?
Usually, for example, in driving license updates, criminal record confirmation, things, mundane elements like booking a test for your car every year, those sorts of things. But the big one actually that we're working with at the minute is in the health sector within Northern Ireland, where there's a new electronic health and care record coming in. And that's a good example of digital transformation because it's turning that health record on its head and providing patient portal to enable patients to manage their own health information and to essentially take more control of their own health. And our digital identity tool has been really the first stage of doing that because it's a reusable identity tool for government for anybody who wants to use it. Unfortunately for us, because we only get to do it once, but it's good for government.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you address about the reusable digital identity. So I would like to back to the NCB here, that you've seen a lot of data, you've seen a lot of flows coming in. What are your views on the potential use cases, probably on the corporate digital identity here?
We have the customer in terms of the company in our database is more than 400,000 company.
Okay, probably most updated.
Yeah.
Then the DPD?
And have a million inquiry transaction per day, every day, right?
All right.
You can imagine that this one company is apply for the 7 bank for the soft loan or something like that. They will get the huge amount of the paper, go to this bank, and sign off, right? This is terrible, right? And if they can go to this way, it's very easy. Back to the basic is who you say you are. Is that this company is this company. This director is this director, and he or she have the real power to sign. Everything is exactly one source of truth, and sign off, and the legal is binding, and everything is go on. Non face to face, no paper, save the tree. Everything is
Go green,
yeah.
sustainability, all those keywords that we've been hearing.
Yeah.
For a whole day.
We hope that the regulator will be play like the key role to push in this, because we have the success story in terms of the consumer, right? The people, but now we need for the company, either like the smaller company, SME or something like that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And so not only in the private sector, but I would like to get back to the public sector, which is personally I think is really inspiring, because a lot of public entities are quite intimidating to using, probably having the digital transformation. But Sivirat has proved that it could happen, and it could happen the big time. So probably Professor Picha can share more experiences on using the components of the digital identity, not only the identity itself, right? Because you mentioned about the electronic documents, the electronic signature. What's your next plan from this to support the Sivirat's smart hospital vision?
Yeah, before going that, as the dean, who is the final who put the D signature, I'm so happy because right now we don't have any paper on my desk, only one page. Then after I run through the D signature, just tick my signature, only one. That means we need not to keep the documentation. We need not to use the storage to keep the papers, and also we don't waste all the expense for that documentation. And finally, we can save the world, because we can save the trees, and this is the most important for our hospital that would like to have the clean campus. But anyway, I think we still have some room for improve. If we would like to all the government sectors to accept our signature, I think we need to find the standard platform. And also that we don't have any question about the KYC technology because Dr. Nuchit talked to us already. We confirmed about that, no problem. And the good version control, that may be the regulator side, will give to us. And as the medical institute of the nation, we are not only the service to the patient, but we are the medical education. We teach our doctors and also the alliance to go and work for our patients to all over the country. And we also do the research and give the excellent service. So I think that if we would like to be smart, that means electronic any kind should be the major projects to our hospital. So I would like to expand not only the procurement, but I would like to go to the e-education, e-research, and e-hospital, especially like electronic consent form. I think we can expand for that. And we are very happy to be the pilot for the government sector, and we are open our house to anyone who would like to come to see our hospital. We are happy to share to them, and we would like to learn from them too. This is my experience about using the designation at Sila Hospital.
Thank you so much, and we certainly hope that all the public entities will, follow up your digital footprints here. Okay, so speaking of the digital identity ecosystem, we all realize that the importance and the systems should be safe and sound because it actually has our personal data there, and to make sure that the security, data privacy, you can name for more, or consumer protections are preserved. So that's why this kind of digital identity service providers needs to be regulated. So back to you, Ian. Probably have the picture of what's going on in the regulatory framework or the risk management on the service providers.
I mean, certainly I've mentioned obviously the identity and trust framework that's come into play. I think that some of the other elements within the UK framework would include, we were talking about this over lunch actually, the ICO, the Information and Communication Authority, which would look at the way in which data is used, the way in which it's applied, it's stored, retained, and broadening all of that is I'm going to now not remember what it stands for, but GDPR, so Global Data Protection Requirements, which is something that the UK has retained despite leaving the EU in the last couple of years. So that's something very much about the right to be forgotten, the right to have some kind of...
We also have it here. We have the PDPA already in place, effective.
Yeah, it's funny because actually it was something that we were actually very concerned about because it's something you don't want to get on the wrong side. But what we found in this particular project is we're working with the ICO very, very carefully on saying, look, there's data that's really usable and relevant, and how that's stored then is all very much as part of the consent mechanism.
Thank you. So probably back to you for the very last question. About the regulatory framework and risk management, and we know that the decree has passed for the digital identity service providers control. So can you please update us what's going on and actually what the providers should get prepared?
Yes. We have a regulatory scheme for that digital ID service providers. If they would like to operate for the Thai users, they have to be licensed. And we proposed the Royal Decree. The slide is putting, okay.
Yeah, it's up.
Okay, Royal Decree on the regulating digital ID services. Now it's at the stage where it's being proposed to the King to design and then announced in the Royal Gazette. But under that Royal Decree, there will be the subordinate laws, notification, announcement. We are working on it. But the principle is similar to what Ian has just said. It's risk-based. We look at different risks like identity theft, the fake of digital ID information, or the availability of the exchange platform, when a person needs to be authenticated, but the platform is not working. So that's present problems to the business users. So these are different type of risks that we try to address. And we look at different frameworks like ISO 27001 with the recent update, which covers many aspects of governance, including the infrastructure governance issued by the US, like identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. These are different aspects that we are looking at.
Thank you so much. So I'm sorry that we're running out of time. I would like you to give at least 1 minute as a key takeaway for the audience. Probably I'll start over to you.
Thank you. Just, I suppose, one of the key messages is about inclusivity on digital identity, and I think I just wanted to sort of finish this for my talk on this. So within the Northern Ireland context, we would pass around 80% of the identity checks, but 20% of them fall into this manual process. And typically those 20% are people who don't have core documents or aren't able to access the banking system for whatever reason. So we have this thing we call last mile for identity, and it essentially automates all the other documents that you would maybe rely on, be that bank statement, birth certificate, using artificial intelligence and using anomaly detection algorithms. So that to me is the key takeaway. You can get 80% of people through, but actually the cost of doing the 20% manually is perhaps 10 times as much. So that's really the message that I'd like to convey around inclusivity.
Yeah, cost is actually the key word as well for all industries. Professor?
Yes, a lot. We give the service for the patient more than 10,000 per day, or 4.5 million visits. I think that this signature should be cost effective to make our hospital can have enough good and right drugs and equipment for our Thai patients. And also, I think for the time frame that we are shorting, like I told it, that we from 26 days to be 4 days, it should be enhance the ecosystem for our economy in Thai. And also that we hope that in the near future, we should have more information or experience to confirm that the signature to be good for our business. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Last slide, please. I think in the today we are still in the unknown. We are we work on the situation is unknown. To develop about the financial service on the digital service is we need the unlimited creativity. As the Mr. Governor is said, is a responsible creativity, right? But we hope we have to solve the two problems. One is the frontier of the development today is limited by the ability of the regulator. Not more than this.
Who's
right?
that?
Who's that? Bank of Thailand? Yeah.
I'm not taking
Sure, you are the one. Okay. Another one is lawyer. Anytime that we talk with the lawyer, that we just like we talk with the wall, right? Or we talk with the sea, and they will respond being that, oh, I used to do like this. It's mean like in Thai is ผมสะดวกแบบนี้ เอาแบบนี้นะ I think this is the two problem that we need. Okay, Mr. Governor said that about the less possible creativity. We need from the sound from the business side is we need reasonable regulator. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So let's hear from the last regulator here. What's his last word of the panel?
Thank you for giving the last words. Well, I would like to say that digital ID is here and is now. Don't wait. If you don't know how to start, talk to one of us or all of us. I think we are happy to work with you. And like Kun Sarpon has said, don't let law be the boundary of your activities. Don't let the regulators be the boundary for your abilities or your creativity. And we have mechanisms like Sandbox. We have been working with central banks that allows different corporate users and also government agency to to perform or conduct and experiment their business models, their technology under our sandboxes. So at least we try to be friendly regulator and not too strict regulator. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is so obvious.
Last point.
Last one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have the last session. That's why we can extend.
Anytime that
10 more minutes.
regulator is said the sandbox, this is like a backhoe.
Just
Anything come in, not come out. Mr. Governor, he said this morning.
no, there are a lot of projects
Yes,
got
thank you.
out already. Thank you so much. It's so obvious that we all collaborate because this is the public and private partnership. We help build the infrastructure, we help build the standards and also the business rules that we need to mutually agree. We also innovate to build the platform and to extend from the individual digital identity to the business usages. And also we inspire. We can start from what we're ready for. We can think big and start small, but we can move fast. Thank you so much, all gentlemen. Please give a big round of applause.
Thank you once again to all the panelists. May I invite Dr. Anushit on the stage to take a picture with the panels, please. So that wraps up today's great session. So thank you all the panelists and also Dr. Anushit for the keynote speech for business in the digital world, the evolution of digital identity. For all of you that you are still here, the main stage is over, but the library stage is still running. So the session on an outlook on Thai and ASEAN FinTech landscape is still ongoing. So please be invited to the library stage on the second floor. And also, the exhibition areas will continue until late evening. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. Before we end today, though, we would love to hear from you for sure. Your feedback is invaluable to us. So you can simply scan the QR code shown here to take you to the survey, to the event, and provide us any feedbacks you may have. There you go. That's the QR code. Simply put up your phone and scan the QR, and then will take you to the survey. And please do provide us on the feedbacks, any comments you may have on the event so that we can improve. And thank you for having us, coming with us today. So for today, we have enjoyed great sessions on the future digital economy, payments, and digital identity prospects. So we hope you stick around on the library stage and the exhibition area and enjoy the rest of our event.
And also tomorrow, also very, very interesting and exciting as well. We touch upon the topics of digital assets, central bank digital currency, blockchain, and cybersecurity. There will also be an announcement for the winner of CBDC Hackathon. So I hope to see you all tomorrow. Thank you so much for your great participation today. Have a safe trip back home. Thank you. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ